is live. Dylan! Doo-doo-doo! Dylan is on! I'm waiting for everyone to join. Oh, here we go. What's up, everyone? It's True CRIMERELI, Thursdays, 7 p.m. Today we have an awesome episode. It's not about a specific serial killer, but it's about demons and the spiritual world and the paranormal. Yes, here we go. Where are them tacos, man? Listen, man, don't tempt me. I might go get some tacos on Saturdays, man. I'm not playing. Thank you guys for joining. Dylan is on. We're talking about tacos right now. I wonder how that connects to the paranormal. I wonder if tacos attract spirits. I wonder if tacos attracts demons, Dylan. We might have to discuss that in a bit. I'm not. I don't know. We'll have to figure that. Tacos. So yeah, this episode is different because this is not an episode on any serial killer in specific. But we're talking about how we've always mentioned in each episode how maybe the serial killer is connected to somehow to the spirit world, to a demon or possessed. And you guys voted that you guys wanted us to talk about the spirit world and the demons today. So that's what we're going to talk about. And how it connects to true crime and the serial killers and shooting and all those things that you guys heard about. So we'll start. But I'm going to do another book that... Nina, can I help you? I'm live on podcast here. You want to say hi? Come here. Say hi. Hi! Say hi. I know. All right, cool. Thank you for sharing that, Dana. Thank you for sharing. Oh, hello. Hi, guys. So I'm going to do a little reading from Ted Bundy, Conversations with a Killer. Dylan gave me this one, too. Dylan and his wonderful gifts. I love you. Thank you, Dylan. I'm just going to pick a random, because why not? It's random thing day. All right, let's see. Let me see. What's the random? Oh, this is an interview. Ooh. So this is what the interview asked to Ted Bundy. Maybe the best way to put it is to ask the question this way. Would this individual have on his mind the disposal problem at the time he was in search of the victim? Ted Bundy responds, I doubt that'd be a necessity to, because he had already thought about it, at least in general, prior to that time. The specifics of it would, of course, be dictated to a certain degree by the situation. Let's say then, the case we just talked about. He hadn't said, I'm going to take her to point A. In fact, he went back to his apartment and looked at a map and said, that looks good. And he then drove to that area. The specifics of where he would dispose of the body would depend on access roads or whatever. I'll do one more. The interviewer says, there perhaps a lack of sophistication on my part. Having to go in and out of residence with any large bundle will seem to be risking everything no matter what time of day. Ted Bundy laughs. You say that you're not sophisticated enough, but I think, Steve, with enough study and interest, that you too could become a fairly effective mass murderer. Anyone has the capacity, and it doesn't take a great deal of skill or thought to do it. The very nature of the crime, since it's based on opportunity, is a relatively easy kind of crime to get away with. Wow. So I'm assuming that Ted Bundy was, I haven't read the book yet, but I'm assuming that Ted Bundy was talking in a third person kind of thing, which is talking about himself. So he would plan out these things. He would probably maybe stalk the victim, plan out what he would do, and know where he was going to take the victim afterwards after he killed her. So that's very interesting. And going into this episode, Ted Bundy did mention in an interview before he was executed that there was an entity that he felt was a part of him, that he felt that was the one that controlled him to do these things, that made him do these things. He did that a lot to dissociate from his crimes. Yes, so that they wouldn't think it was him, which clearly we know it was him, because I think I know Richard Ramirez also did that as well. He would talk in the third person, and it's like, bro, we know you did it, so then you're in jail. Just might as well just come out with it, you know. How many bodies you got? You mean books or bodies? I only have one body, but books, I got a lot of books. But yeah, interesting book. Ted Bundy, Conversations with the Killer, The Death Row Interviews by Stephen G. Mogg and Hugh Ainsworth. It's really good. Check it out. But yeah, as I was saying, Ted Bundy, going into this topic of this today's episode, he did say there was an entity that would make him do the things he wanted to do. Now, what we don't know is, was he born with this entity? Did he really have an entity, or was that his excuse to get out of those, to, you know, justify what he did? We don't know. But what we've noticed, and what me and Dylan have always talked about in the last couple of episodes, is that there's a connection, some reason, for the spiritual world, the demon, the paranormal with true crime. Because a lot of these serial killers grow up either, you know, doing rituals or following all these evil religions, or they all claim to have an entity or a spirit or something that would attach to them, or having these blackouts. And usually blackouts have this connection with spiritual, or being possessed. Dylan knows a lot more about this, so I'm going to have Dylan come on. So Dylan, whenever you're ready, hop on. I know that people are excited to hear this conversation because you're the master of this stuff. So hop on in when you can, Dylan. And let's get to it, because I think it's very interesting that a lot of you are really excited for this. I didn't expect the amount of comments of like, I'm excited for this episode. This is amazing. So we'll see. Pause. Goose. What's that, Goose? So yeah. Interesting. Again, you guys have time to ask questions while Dylan, hops on. If you have any questions, if you have any thoughts about what I just read, or if you have any questions about this episode so we can answer it as we're talking to you, go right ahead. We're here for you. Will you talk about witchcraft and stuff like that? Absolutely. We'll get into that stuff here too. Is possession real, or is it a mental illness? Ooh, Dylan, I need you to hop on. This is a good question. But this is where it gets tricky, because a lot of people associate possessions with mental illness, like you just asked. I don't think so. I think that possession is real. Psychos or demons? There's psychos and there's also demons. And there's facts out there. There's things that have been proven that these things do exist. There is a book that Dylan talks a lot about to me about, the exorcisms and stuff like that, and how this priest would go and he would wrote about all his experiences and how he actually went through all this. And I definitely feel like it exists. I definitely do believe in demons and in angels, and there's a God and there's Satan. So if you believe in all that, then you have to believe in possessions. But sometimes it is a mental illness. Like Richard Chase, like we did last week, episode 3. He had severe mental illness, and he had this crazy thought of like the Nazi and the UFOs chasing him. And that was his reason for killing. That to me is more mental illness than anything, but who knows? Maybe he was possessed. Maybe he had a bad spirit. We don't know. But I definitely do think they exist. I definitely believe there is some type of dark force that comes from child trauma. Absolutely, because spirits travel through portals. And you would know this. Oh, Dylan has hopping on him. Give me a second. Demons love dark. Demons love trauma. Demons love anything that they can find, anything that's weakness to them. So when you have severe trauma, whether it's abuse, sexual abuse, molestation, all that stuff, that opens the portal for these things to come through, and that's where they eat. That's where they feed, is that weakness. Oh, Dylan!
Hey.
Dylan, there's a question that Gustavo asked. and I answered, but I truly want you to answer this one because you have a book, and it says, is possession real or is it a mental illness?
Well, the thing is nobody can really accept either or unless they directly experience it, or as I said in the last podcast, until you die, and then you will find out if it's all true or not. But I would say it's true. There are cases of mental illness that mimic various signs of possession. This is why I know in Catholicism, the exorcist, when being confronted with someone who's possessed by either being brought to them by family or friends, or sometimes on their own, they will go through a rigorous psychiatric test to first distinguish if this is either mental problems or an actual spirit. So it's not so much the thing where, oh, well, he's cursing a lot and he's talking really weird, he must be possessed. Not really. In the science of exorcism, and there is a science of exorcism, specifically in the Catholic Church, they will heavily test these people psychologically with a psychiatrist, independent of Catholicism, and most of the time non-believers.
Yeah.
So they like a Catholic likes a real good skeptic because they don't have any bias that will lean towards, oh, he's just possessed. No, if he's either something abnormal, supernatural going on with the person, or he's exhibiting just straight up mental illness. So
you're saying that there is both, that both do exist? Absolutely.
I think in my where I'm coming from, yes, but there are people who don't believe in spirituality at all, and they would just chalk it up as all mental illness, and that's fine too. But like I said, you won't really ever know 100% till you deal with it personally in your life, whether it's yourself or somebody else.
Now you do have a book that you have shared with me a couple of times as we're working on this.
That's right.
And it talks about, I think, if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like a priest that talks about his experiences in the exorcism that he does.
The book is called Hostage to the Devil, and it's by Malachi Martin, who was a exorcist priest here in America. At the beginning of his career, he was what do they call him? Oh, man. The word escapes me. But he was in the heaviest, most intense part of the Catholic Church. Anyway, to make a long story short, he was even the advisor to the Pope at one time. Anyway, he came to America.
I know. It's a Jesuit.
The Jesuit. He was a Jesuit. That's like an elite Navy SEAL order of the Catholics. Anyway, he came here in America to specifically practice the Catholicism of ancient time, because back in the early 20th century, Catholicism changed completely, and they prescribed to a new doctrine and everything else. Anyway, he wasn't good with the change of Catholicism in Rome, so he said, I'm going to revert back to the ancient way of Catholicism, as well as become an exorcist here in America. And he wrote this book, which is actually transcripts of, I think it's maybe 4 or 5 actual accounts of exorcism. Wow. And so he has the tapes of the exorcism being recorded live. And he's actually writing down the dialogue between the demons, the exorcist, and the people around in that situation. So it's very interesting because you get to see exactly where the demons are coming from, how they think, what they say, their attitude. Really interesting.
Wow. So that book is called Hostage of the Devil, right?
Hostage to the Devil.
I'm going to get
Hostage
that
to
book
the Devil.
to have it.
It's a really interesting book. And funny thing is, he breaks it down. You just had to read. I don't want, no spoilers.
Well, it's a really good book, guys, because I think Dylan has mentioned it to me twice.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it's been stuck in my head. And I'm like, I got to get it. So now that I know the name, I'm definitely getting it. Because it's very interesting. And like, once you understand how it works, maybe you'll be like, oh, that's an understanding of true crime. So, Dylan, I know a lot of people wanted to see this episode. And it's because we talk a lot about, in every episode, how the possibility of how these serial killers are connected somehow spiritually or being possessed or something in that vein. So that's what we're talking about this episode. How do you think, and yes, someone did mention about witchcraft, and witchcraft is definitely a part of it because, like, doing rituals like Richard Ramirez did. Richard would do rituals before he would go do his killing. So, like, that's part of witchcraft. How do you think paranormal, the demons, affect serial killers, mass shooters, pedophiles? Like, how, in your opinion?
Well, I think you have to first start at ground zero, which is the demons themselves. Number one, their first ambition in their existence in this world is to defy God. Number two would be to defy his order, which is, if angels previously were supposed to, in this world, guide, protect, help mankind. But them not wanting to aid man, feeling superior above man, have now made it their goal to destroy man. And so, like in that book, Hostage to the Devil, you will read and hear them talk about and express their hatred for humanity. Their hatred for God. And it's this extreme hate of murder, death, defile, destroy, blaspheme. It's this energy that, if you want to put it on a scale, is completely demonic and negative. Now, if you go on the other side of the scale, you have Jesus and, of course, the prophets and apostles who preach love, emotional, spiritual wellness, the exact opposite. So it's this two sides, light and dark, forever battling on this earth, mankind in the middle. And so if you think of the MO of a demon, he wants to destroy man. He wants to kill him. He wants to, if he could, he wants to gut him. He wants to, a lot like a Richard Ramirez, wants to just destroy that image of the human, whether it's cutting them up, kicking them, gouging their eyes out, whatever it is, just totally desecrate a human being. So that's actually the motivation for demons. Yes. They want to destroy, they want to blaspheme the creation of God. Again, exactly the opposite of Jesus, who came to save and help mankind. They want to do the exact opposite. So I believe serial killers take on those driving forces.
And also, Dylan, like we said before, we've noticed that a lot of serial killers as a kid, they open portals. That's right. And maybe not on purpose, but it's like a lot of the trauma. Those are doors to portals. Yeah. Traumatic events, or doing heavy drugs. That's also a way to open up portals. Right. And sometimes, like we did talk briefly about it last week, how there is a talk of, like, when your soul is coming down to come to this earth, there's a possibility that entities can jump in and join you, and as you come into this world, you have an entity with you. Right. And so there's a lot of things we can talk about. I want to start by talking about the portals and how they're open.
Well, what do you think about portals? How do you believe demons come through those portals to affect the people, the subject, the host?
For me, the way they come through is it has to be something very traumatic to the point where it changes the person's self-being, if that makes sense. It has to. Demons feed off of weakness, I feel like, and you have to be at a point where you're so vulnerable, right? And your mind is just going through these dark thoughts. That's where they come in. I'm like, this is the best time to attack and grab what's ours. That's what I feel like. I think that's the best time they would do that. Or when you're doing heavy drugs, like you open up, and I don't know if you know, people know about the third eye. You open up the third eye. The third eye is another way to connect with these beings and spirits and stuff. And it's like, that's a way for them to connect.
Oh, yeah.
Also, maybe they were messing around with stuff when they were kids, like Richard Ramirez, but I'm sure we'll mess around with the Ouija board or do rituals and whatever.
Yeah.
Those are other ways to open up portals, and if you don't know how to close them, Dylan, there's a problem,
Oh, yeah.
You don't know what comes out of there. So I just think that for me, for a young kid, the number one thing is the trauma. It depends how big of a trauma that is. I have a thing with Ted Bundy because I don't know Ted Bundy's childhood. There was never enough stuff about his childhood. Yeah. But there had to be something very traumatic to him that had happened to him for him to claim there's an entity. Or he was just using that as, an excuse to justify what he did. I personally think, like you said last week, for him to be, 4 years old and put, knives around,
that's wild.
That's not normal behavior for a kid. That is some demonic shit.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I always say Ted Bundy because I'm curious to know how traumatic his childhood was for something like that to come in and make him do what he did. What do you think is the way of a portal for a demon to come in?
Well, it's very interesting. I was watching a video on YouTube the other day with Roy Masters, who talks about self-help and mental health and all that kind of thing. And he brought up a really good, interesting scenario where he was talking about Africa. And in Africa, there's huge guerrilla, I don't know what you call them, gangs, where they terrorize the village people through drugs, prostitution. And what they do is they steal kids, basically. These little kids, 3, 4, 5 years old. And a part of the way that they install their mentality in these kids is they'll give a gun to a little 5-year-old and say, shoot your father. Shoot your father. And the kid's crying and he doesn't want to, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
But it's through this traumatic experience, when that kid finally does shoot his father, that PTSD, that trauma, they're able to then install their own ideology in that kid, and they'll be faithful till the end.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, that's basically, I think, what demons are doing in a more large, family to family experience. They come into a person, they create this terrible trauma in that child's life, and in doing so, it implants that nature, that evil seed, that idea in that kid, and he's forever looping around in this circle of the trauma, and not only does it become a huge part of his life, it becomes a sustaining part of his life. How many times have you heard in the news or even in your own family and friends community where we'll say there was a kid who in most recent times was molested by a Catholic priest, and then after that happens, the kid just spirals into drugs, he becomes a heroin addict, and then ultimately, he overdoses and dies. So it's like that trauma will then create this bubble within a bubble in that person's life where they can't escape, they can't get out. It's like this scene just keeps repeating over and over and over. And that's basically what trauma is. And I think demons, in the same way, enter a serial killer's life. Hey, Richard Ramirez, Ted Bundy, both went out there and said, the quote probably better than I do, CRIMERELI, when Richard is talking about it crushing him.
Oh, yeah. If he didn't, do what oh God, I can't even say it right now. I said it so many times that I can't say it. He's like, I would be crushed by it. I remember.
If I didn't give into it, I would be crushed by it.
Yeah.
And I know Ted Bundy said something very similar. So what happens is this trauma enters the serial killer's mind, and it starts to snowball into this thing until it's uncontrollable, and they're at the mercy of these voices, and serial killers definitely talk about voices and hearing
Yes.
voices. One thing, though, is that some people will do terrible things caused by trauma, but it's almost a reverse where the trauma happens to a person, the person then grows up or something, causes another trauma towards somebody, and then that trauma that they inflicted then nullifies the first trauma. They say, what the hell did I just do? I can't be doing this thing. It takes them beyond their normal self.
Yeah.
And it makes them objective to this horror that they just created. And then it could also, defuse that kind of thing. But then we have serial killers, for whatever reason, when experience trauma, then create trauma as teens and adults, they like it.
Yeah.
They like it. They enjoy it. And the more evil they can do, and the more horrendous way they can kill somebody, they're living their best life. And
that's where we go, are you possessed? Is that an entity, or is that the actual person? Because it's not normal behavior for us to like killing someone.
Exactly.
Exactly. Hi, Fanny. How are ya? So pretty much demons affect broken homes is what you're pretty much trying to say.
I would definitely say that. I think, hey, it's like there are many factions of thought. Mine in particular is, I believe demons, evil spirits, whatever you may call them, I think they affect a family in many varying layers, like a cake.
Yeah.
They'll destroy, the father relationship. Maybe they'll destroy the father-mother relationship. The kid sees this, then it spirals into something else, and then it's a very complex system of deterioration that I think creates a person who is a serial killer, where it's multiple factors. Like you look at what you're talking about, Sam Little.
Yeah.
This is a guy who you can definitely say was possessed by some kind of demon. He openly admits to killing about, roughly 90 plus women. Yeah. There was a whole soup that psychologically affected this man to ultimately become who he became.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's just one thing. I think it's a host of things, and it's almost like a web, we'll say.
Yeah. Like,
and then you have this child on this web, and then there comes a spider, which is the demon.
Yeah.
Who slowly.
I hate spiders.
Yeah, so do I. Slowly starts to wrap that weave around them, and then until there's just no escape. Yeah. And I think that's what it is. And I think you mentioned Ted Bundy earlier. In his last interview, of course, he's talking about pornography.
Yeah.
He was very, very right in saying that not everybody who watches pornography goes out and becomes a Ted Bundy, but that's just another example of it's just this one thing in a host of things that contributes ultimately to this behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wait, we have questions. Didn't Richard say he didn't enjoy assaulting kids? He just did it to be as evil as he could be. Richard never confessed or never showed any remorse to anything. No. So we don't know if that is actually true. We just know that he never mentioned anything about that. He did say, according to Gil Carrillo, in an interview that he did, that he felt bad for a puppy that had escaped when he abducted one of the kids. That's all we know. Do spirits really exist? Because I saw videos on YouTube of people trying to speak to spirit of Richard Ramirez. Spirits do exist. Spirits exist. I definitely think if demons exist, Dylan, back me up. If demons exist, spirits definitely exist. There's just no doubt about it, What do you think, Dylan?
Well, I believe in if you want to call them ghosts, absolutely. I mean, I've recorded ghosts in multiple places. I have the evidence. I've heard it. So there's no doubt in my mind whatsoever that kind of thing exists. As far as demons go, if you really want to break that down, in the Bible, when Jesus is talking about these spirits, he's calling them unclean spirits, unclean spirits. And the idea is that, as I said earlier, there was this host of angels in heaven. 1/3 rebelled, came to earth, fallen, in a fallen state. And these fallen angels, we would call the rulers, the king demons of territorial places throughout the earth, the generals, the governors. Whereas the unclean spirits might be something a little different. In the Old Testament, they're given a word called Raphian. It's very interesting. 2 weeks ago, I was looking up this word in ancient Hebrew, and the word Raphian is talking about the spirit, but the actual description of the spirit, and you're gonna love this card, means shadow, shades. Now we're talking about a description of these unclean spirits back in New Testament time, so that's way early BC. Shades, shadows. So that's another interesting thing. We have these shadow beings that exist. There are also apparently these entities that wear cloaks. And in fact, when we went to the Zach Bagans Haunted Museum in Las Vegas, in one of the first rooms, the Bunny Ranch room, did you remember that picture of that demon in a cloak?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. If you hear the reports, I mean, even from Ed and Lorraine Warren, and you can look up their book, The Demonologist. It has these descriptions of maybe the hierarchy of demons that they wear these cloaks. It's very interesting. It's like, why would they wear a cloak? But who knows? You can kind of define that by using New Testament scripture where they talk about, the holy side wearing garments, cloaks, robes. So maybe it's just the opposite side of the fence where they wear cloaks but they're black or they're red. Very interesting. But as you look in the scope of demonology, there are many different types of demons, unclean spirits, rulers. So it's not just one in particular. Even in the Quran, they talk about demons or the jinn, who aren't necessarily fallen angels. They're made out of smokeless fire or something like that. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. We have a couple of questions. One said, hi, parents that have lost their kids suffer from PTSD and often take revenge, even killing. Where is evil in this case? I don't think, and Dylan, I don't know what you think. I don't think it's evil in that case. I just think that's rage and anger because you're losing your loved one to someone that, you know what I'm saying? So if that's the case, we are all evil. I'm going to start saying we are all evil in some form or another, or not, because there you go. But it's like then we're considered all evil because we all feel rage. We all feel anger. We know when someone hurts us, we're angry. We get angry. We want to get revenge for some reason. We want to curse them out. So are we considered possessed and have demons because we feel that way? So you have to be careful because it depends on the situation.
Absolutely.
I don't think in that case it's demonic or possessed. It's anger. It's human behavior. You're gonna feel some kind of way. You're gonna want to go and get revenge, like John Wick. John Wick is not possessed by a demon that I know of. They killed his dog. I would have done the same thing, So I don't know, Dylan. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it's a wrong concept to think that, your brother took the last piece of cake, and so he just committed an evil act that a demon whispered in his ear, "Take that cake, man."
Right.
There's definitely a line there. When we do bad things to each other, it isn't necessarily all evil or all demons at all. We just, it's a trait of just existing in this world and being subject to certain occurrences and events that, whether we're in control of them or not, overwhelm us. And so I think in cases like that, no, I don't think it's a demon. I don't think all murder is demonic. in fact, I think in criminal court system, we call that like a heat of passion type killing. And that's even given a kind of leniency for the very fact that through this insane trauma that this person experienced, acted out, not in the full capacity of understanding what happened, being driven totally on emotion. But on the other side of that, what we're talking about, serial killers, I think that's a different thing. These are people who are hungry to murder. They're hungry.
It's like they have to do it. Like there's an urge. They have like a desire, and if they don't do it, it kills them. Like that's a different thing.
I think it's different, and I wouldn't say all killing is demonic at all.
I agree. Someone said, "Do you think demons and poltergeists are similar?" I think that poltergeist, isn't it like energy, accumulated energy, negative energy or spirits versus demons?
Well, it's very interesting. I mean, this is a really broad topic, poltergeist, because so many people have studied this particular topic. There are, if you look up a film, I don't know if it's 70s or 80s, but it's called The Entity.
Yeah.
And it's a real case that happened here in LA. In fact, the house is, the location is somewhere. We should drive by it one day. But this lady had this incredible experience with poltergeist. Later, it was said that it was a demon. There are areas that people have experienced poltergeist activity and debunk it by saying it was like landlines of energy. And in this particular house, these lines of energy crossed, and this was causing all of this kind of poltergeist activity.
In the movie, like the poltergeist, because like their houses were built on a burial ground or cemetery. No, it was a cemetery. Right. So like it was the spirits that were there that was so like. Is that considered demon though, or just energy of the spirits? Because that's where I'm a little confused.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, there are, and I think made very popular in today's age by the Conjuring series, is that you can have a human spirit trapped in this cycle of time that maybe they don't have the intellectual capacity to give up their home, and they don't understand that there are new people there, and they harass those people. I think in one of the Conjuring films, a person was something like that, but then there was a demon behind that. It's tough to say. I mean, I think there are spirits, obviously, that can harass people, which would be human spirits.
Yeah.
And I also think there are unclean, demonic type spirits that harass people. And I also think there are the bigger, heavier weights of fallen angels that can harass a human being.
And speaking of angels, someone said there are religions where the figure angels don't exist. What's the opposite of angels for those religions?
You'd have to ask them. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, I feel like they would call them spirits or guides. I don't know. But they.
I mean, there are like thousands of religions out there. So I don't know. Yeah,
but they do call them. Wait, go ahead, then.
It's a matter of science, testing, and all the above. You know what? When you look at demonic possession and exorcism, one thing you will find, we'll say 9 times out of 10, that demonic spirit, however way it possessed that person, Ouija board, drugs, you name it, that demon spirit will not release its hold of that human being through any other means but by the name of Jesus Christ. Now, what does that mean? Everyone can do what they want with that.
Yeah.
That tells me something. That tells me that these demons who are not expelled by cleansings or sage or Christian prayers or any of that have to ultimately be exercised by the name of Jesus Christ. I find that very interesting. That must mean to me that means something. Whether and so I've looked into that. Even in there's also this great podcast called what is it called? The Exorcist.
The Exorcist Files.
The Exorcist Files, where it's
Father
Carlos Martin, who's a Catholic guy, and he's talking about his cases, and he was saying that he's had every kind of religion contact the Catholic Church in order to go through with an exorcism, because their God, and we're talking even the Jews in Judaism, could not expel the demon. Now I'm not Catholic myself, but I do find it interesting that the most structured type exorcism comes from the Catholic Church. So there's something about that structure throughout centuries that, for whatever reason, when brought out through the Ritual Romanum, immediately intimidates demons for whatever reason. Someone should really look into that.
Yeah. Someone said, how is Richard not driven by anger and resentment then? Well, that's what we were saying. We're not going to base everything off being evil, but Richard was a case where, because of his childhood, because of what he went through, because of the struggles he had gone through, because of the rituals and the satanic things he got involved in, it created this resentment, this anger, and it made him do what he did. So that is Richard's story is very unique, because it took a lot of a combination. It was like a whole recipe for disaster with him. Like, it took a lot to be like, here you go, and here's the serial killer. Versus someone killed my daughter or someone killed my dog, I want to kill this person. It's totally two way different things in different spectrums. You know what I'm saying? So yes, Richard did kill for resentment and anger, but if you look at his story, it's not the same as someone killed my dog and I have pain and I'm sad and I want to kill them because it's revenge.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right.
So
that's right. I mean, we all have resentment and anger.
Yeah.
To varying degrees, most of the time because of our childhood.
Yeah.
What about the kid? They find, the 1-year-old or 2-year-old, they find next to a dumpster in some alley, and some, firefighter picks up that kid, and, they take it to the hospital because some drug user mother, some prostitute mother just left it there by the garbage. And then that kid grows up. I mean, they're not serial killer. I mean, there are kids throughout the whole world who experience the most horrific things, probably even worse than Richard Ramirez, who don't become the Night Stalker killing people for fun. So the idea is that, yes, trauma can definitely and absolutely does affect the child, but there's something about that child's mental wiring that then...
Well, also, you got to remember, for those who are watching, as Dylan's explaining, he had mental illness.
Yeah.
Richard had a lot of mental illness on top of epilepsy, which, and as people don't understand, by the age of 12, your brain should be developing. His was kind of like rotting with all the acid it was just backwards. So you got to understand that the way he was thinking, the way he saw the world, his reality was not our reality. What he saw, we didn't see. It was a totally different thing. So you can't compare, like, Dylan was saying, you can't compare that to someone who's a normal person just feeling revenge because they killed their daughter or their son. Exactly.
That's why I say there's a host of things that contribute to a serial killer's manifestation. Again, we've talked about Mike, Richard's cousin. I mean, my goodness. Good Lord. I mean, what more do you need? I mean, there it is. I mean, you could literally just take that. But there's, of course, much more stuff that happened to him.
Yeah.
So you factor all those things in. For whatever reason, he prescribed to Satanism.
Yeah.
And I think that's ultimately what I wanted to say in the reply to that person, is that We all have anger and resentment, but not all of us turn to Satanism, and not all of us have a cousin who we idolize, who's a killer and raper of women and, you know, people. So it's like you factor all that in. Yeah. It's not just the resentment and hate. It's deeper things involved. I mean, you could even take a sidebar with just Michael. I mean, he's over there butchering and raping people in Vietnam. I mean, that's demonic.
Yeah.
1,000%.
1,000%.
And so he comes out here and little Richie is idolizing this demoniac. Well, what are the next steps? He's going to become that thing.
Oh, and mind you that his cousin taught him how to hunt,
exactly.
How to crawl, how to go in through windows, no one noticing. So, like, come on, guys.
Exactly.
So
that's exactly. And I think the hatred and resentment he had was basically the soil.
Yeah.
Fertile soil for all of this other horrendous type things to grow out of.
Yeah. Yeah. Satanism was an avenue for Richard. He needed it. However, if you play with the devil, he's going to play back. If you play with fire, you're going to get burned.
That's right.
And that's exactly what happens, Richard.
Absolutely. And that can even be said not specifically in serial killing, but in business, in relationships. Yeah. You can go to the dark side asking for those things, and it may be very successful in the immediate present, but in the long run, it never pays off.
It says true Satanists punish wicked behavior. Why is Richard dubbed a Satanist and not a troubled Judo-Christian boy? Because people have this mindset of Satanism. There's so many different sects of Satanism. I read the book that on Anton LaVey, the Satanic Bible. And in that Bible that you just said, true Satanists punish the wicked behavior. You're not supposed to rape women. You're not supposed to kill in Anton LaVey's book. However, there are different sects of Satanism, like Luciferians, where they believe that doing harm is the way to go. Richard, I think what Richard did was he read all these things and said, well, all of this is, I'm going to mix it up and make my own religion, and this is what I am. But to culture, to us, publicly, you put the pentagram up, you're automatically Satanist. Right. Especially in the 80s when that shit was blowing up, people were terrified. They're going to mark him as Satanist.
Right.
They didn't.
I think, to be honest, Richard Ramirez gives Satanism a bad rep.
Yeah, really I'm like, no, he wasn't a LaVey Satanist, though, but he did read that book.
I think what happened was I think he agreed with some of the philosophy of Satanism for sure. But I think by the time he was incarcerated, he saw Satanism as a structured religion that could maybe help him define his Satanism without going out and admitting to what he actually believed and was doing, which was killing people. So in the very same way, a Christian person or a Catholic person who's a serial killer will then start, talking about Jesus and they're just about as much as followers of Jesus as maybe Richard Ramirez was a follower of Anton LaVey's prescribed Satanism.
Yeah.
Oh.
Richard was a devil worshiper then. Richard was a devil worshiper.
Yes, he was.
Richard would actually, do a little ritual before he would enter homes to protect himself. So yes, he was. He believed in that. Yes, he was a devil worshiper.
Yeah, and in Satanism, they don't believe in the actual entity of Satan. They believe it as an archetype for a way of thinking.
Yeah.
Where Richard Ramirez in the Inside Edition interview says, "No, I believe in Lucifer, and I have felt evil power." So just what he's saying right there is contradicting Satanism as a whole.
Yeah. So what would you call people who don't believe in Satan and can't blame these deeds of the devil? Non-believers are left out of logic. They're atheists? I don't know. I mean, you don't believe.
There are Christians and Catholics who don't believe.
Yeah.
In the devil. There are people who work and are pastors and priesters. Priesters. I was probably thinking about priester molesters who are in the Vatican who don't believe in the devil. So it's a very crazy thing. Like I said, you'll never really know until you experience it yourself. You could talk for weeks to a person about, this particular subject matter, but unless they experience it themselves, it's one of those things. And I think it's the same with God. You could tell somebody, oh, God this, God that, but until you really feel it in your life, you see a sign of it, changes your thinking. It's something that needs to be experienced.
I agree. Gustavo said, what signs should we look for in someone that's possessed? Oh.
An alien nature that has attached to that person's what was seemingly before a normal way of life. There's this addition to that person that becomes more and more relevant in that person's life through time as it progresses.
Yeah.
And it's this thing that you can say, okay, we'll say Joe. I knew Joe to be one certain way, but maybe after a traumatic event, maybe after this, that, you name it, something happened where they started to change. And there's this alien nature that they never experienced in that person. A lot of the time it comes out through very vicious type hatred and resentment, irritation. These people are embodying a kind of hate that isn't normal. It's seething. It's seething. And as this person moves on in life, becoming more and more possessed by giving their will to the demon, they will find that whatever type of demon it is, they will start exhibiting that demon's particular characteristics and traits in their life until there comes a point where Joe, as we knew him, isn't even Joe anymore. It's this other person, this other kind of like a virus that infected this person. And now it's just like a computer program. We have a clean, decent computer, and then it gets malware, and now it's something totally different. We can't control it. I mean, it's very matter of fact that way. And like I said, doesn't necessarily mean that's the great thing about that Hostage to the Devil book, is it shows, I think, 4 or 5 different cases of how that manifests itself. So it's not always just anger. It can be very interesting. It can be a very goofy and very nonchalant way of life, to the point where you don't care anymore.
Yeah.
And your no care attitude bleeds down to not caring about anything about what you do.
I was just going to say, someone said that, furthermore, the most famous exorcist said that demons try their best not to show their possession and keep it on stealth mode. How do you spot those possessions? Well, they're not going to be like up in your face. Depression, locking yourself in your house. No one wants, not cleaning yourself, no hygiene, not eating. You know what I'm saying? Those are little signs of hey, this person, something's up with this person, and it's not normal.
Yeah, it's just like anybody who's had maybe an alcoholic in their family, or someone who did drugs. First it was just social. Now all of a sudden they can't live without that thing, and they're totally changed, and they're totally a different person. It creeps up.
Yeah.
It's not overnight. Joe's chilling eating a cheeseburger, then all of a sudden he's walking on the ceiling. It doesn't quite happen.
Yeah, it doesn't happen like that. Someone said, what attracts you to the evil topics? For me, I'm attracted to the unknown. I am attracted to the taboo. I am attracted to the mysteries, because this world, there's a lot of things that people don't know about. And it's just intriguing to me to understand, understand how that, what it is. I've been very spiritual all my life, and I've always studied, with demons and spirits and stuff like that, and witchcraft and all those things. And the fact that it combines with true crime that I love as well, studying, it makes me wonder. I was like, what if this is connected? What, how Dylan said earlier, what if it's demons trying to take over little by little and create this web by, joining these broken homes and creating the cycle of these serial killers and mass shooters and all that. And that's what fascinates me.
absolutely.
What about you, Dylan?
I would have to say the same for me. I've been studying, demonology since maybe I was about 15, 16. So I have quite the knowledge under my belt. But on these particular podcasts, or if I'm doing a movie about Richard Ramirez, it kind of looks like I'm specifically targeting the dark and the evil. But actually, I have a whole other side of myself that is very much spiritual and positive, and I probably know more about the good things in the Bible than the bad things. So it's just, in these particular instances, I talk about this, but it's not completely who I am. But then again, we live in this world, and that's our enemy. Yeah. And if that's our enemy, I think it's best to know as much as you can in that topic to defend yourself and your family, and hopefully make podcasts like these who can bring awareness to the world and give a different perspective.
Someone said there's a difference between demonic possession and demonic influence. Well, I think demonic influence leads to demonic possessions.
Yeah, it definitely can.
And does witchcraft fall in the same category as demon possessions? No, because people put witchcraft under everything. There's a lot of witches out there who practice white magic, and white magic is love and peace and tranquility and, butterflies and rabbits. And that's considered witchcraft because to Christians and Catholic, it's not in the Bible. It's not good. So it depends. Now, if you're, doing black magic, that will be considered, I think, evil in that world, It just depends. It depends.
Someone asked how can you separate mental condition from demonic possession?
Oh, how can you separate mental illness from demonic possession? Well, that's one of the, again, rigorous tests that a Catholic priest will have a potential victim go under. Now, one of the clear signs of possession is unknown knowledge. Now, if you have somebody that's being evaluated by a psychiatrist, and they show them the cross, and they're that's not necessary. That's like, could even be a vampire. No sunlight, no cross. But the difference is that there's something in that conversation, that evaluation between the potential possessed person and the psychiatrist, where that demon will flaunt its power. It will flaunt, in an ego way and say, "Well, how was that pie you had last night?" And the psychiatrist will be like, "What? What are you talking?" It's not unknown, hidden knowledge that the person who is possessed has that they couldn't possibly have unless they were possessed.
Yeah.
Or knowing different languages.
Knowing different languages is another one. By some 6-year-old girl from Tennessee would know some ancient Semitic language. That's things of those nature where it's a paranormal addition, manifestation in that person that cannot be explained through normal means of psychiatry. It jumps and delves into the supernatural. It cannot be explained. And when the psychiatrist comes upon that, and it cannot be explained by scientific a profile of mental illness, then they will hand that person back to the exorcist and say, "This is out of our hands."
Yeah. Dylan, we're about to hit an hour, and this is insane because we're not even anywhere in. And we don't have time for anyone to vote, but I think we should do a part 2 next week.
Oh, shit.
I think we should do a part 2 about, include, someone said there's no white thing as white magic or black magic. We can continue into that world next week and continue. Because you guys have a lot of questions and a lot of, this is amazing. You guys are awesome. So I'm down for a part 2 next week on spirituality, demons, witchcraft. If you're down, Dylan. Because we've been going for years with this.
Hey, man, you keep feeding me them tacos. I'm here for it.
I'm here for the tacos, man. So guys, it's 8:00. It's been an hour with you guys. This is insane. This is why we kind of stand in front of the fucking restaurant and close it down and we're still talking, because that's what we are. But we're going to do a part 2 next Thursday. We're going to come back with this topic. So you guys have any questions you guys have, please write them down and bring them in next week. Because as soon as we start, we're going in. Like, there's no reading books next week. Because, like, we're going back to this. Because we have so much to talk about.
Right.
Clearly, you guys loved it.
I will give people who are watching a little homework.
Yes.
Go on YouTube and type in Malachi Martin and Art Bell, Artbell. Now, there are going to be interviews where that guy who wrote the book, Hostage to the Devil, where he's being interviewed about possession, exorcism, and all that thing. I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions after you hear those interviews.
Yes. So go check that out. Repeat it one more time, Dylan.
Malachi Martin, Malachi Martin, Martin. And then put Art Bell, Artbell. And a bunch of interviews will come.
All right. So there's your homework, guys. We'll see you next Thursday for part 2.
Yeah.
Get your questions, write them down. We'll see you next Thursday. We're going to answer more. And yes, witchcraft is involved next time. We're talking about it. All right, guys.
Witchcraft, yeah.
That's right. Have a good night.
Hey, what if we have any witches join the video? That would be fun.
Who's joining let's do it.
Shelby. Let's get Shelby
Yes.
in here.
Yes. Let's even get Shelby on.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, guys. I love you. Have a good night.